We didn't have a lot of activity yesterday. This morning's a different story. We had one plane flying off to the east here. Another one coming in from the west, also coming in from the east, and you can see the debris of previous trails. And now, swing back closer to the east, here's another one. Gonna head overhead. I can already hear him before he's reached my meridian, so we know he's low. So this is gonna be one of those days. In fact, when I first looked out the window about an hour ago, there it was. It was before sunrise. And so with all this stuff, all this crap already in the air, it's going to be one of those days. Push in. At least it's not one of the marking ones. It's just a little guy. But still, there was this cloud. And he just cut the northern extent of it. I mean, pretty much precisely. And the trail's hanging in there just a little bit longer right there. And so we went right through it. These clouds are in the low 20,000 foot range. More interestingly, is that he's headed right through the center of this cloud. And notice this trail gapped through the cloud, did not persist. Now if it was all humidity and condensation, it would have persisted. It would have lasted. It would have been brighter in here than out here. So it tells me that's not just a regular contrast, kind of like this guy is doing. You can see how he's much brighter in the cloud than this trail. So this trail is a different composition, is there to measure something different than this trail. Go on to the south. It's the swirl. That swirl is what they're interested in for this guy. And then this guy is going to come right through the center of it. Now quickly coming back in from the south, actually from the northeast. And I just noticed he started to take a bend, started to turn. Come in and check out his coloring on the trail. It still looks like one of the bluer ones. But he did a little course correction. He's still turning, So there's some target back in here that he's going to vector on into. Here's another one I didn't see but just heard. So he's low and slow. This guy's not leaving a trail. Let's see if we can't. The paint stream could be UPS. So, these planes weren't here yesterday. They just weren't here yesterday. And so there's this whole other fleet. They show up when there's weather to do. They show up when there's engineering to do. And then when they're not, when there's nothing there, they're not present. Why fly them? Here's that southwest flight that we saw do the bend, do the arc overhead. Come in a little closer. So there's a bit of a cloud right here. He happened to catch the end of it. And to that point, his tail has begun to glow brightly. Looking back into this cloud. And we've got some rippling in here. I can't really tell. I guess it's just going to be a segment of a flight where it ends here in the darker blue zone. I mean, the trail just simply ends. Am I focused? Yep. And so it's just a little bit of a segment. But it'll deform. We can already see up on this end how it's beginning to tear. Here in another plane. It is one hazy morning. A little bit of a trail up there. But you know, these hills are not just a few miles away. Yeah, they're not even that. The bottom one is not even a mile and a half. And we're just in this haze. And I have this feeling it's just going to get thicker and thicker. You know, there's all this crap. You know, we've got coal-fired plants on Navajo land down in northern New Mexico and Arizona, Utah. It's just pollution from California. There is no industry in this valley. This air should be pristine. You know, they talk about clean coal. My ass. There is no such thing as clean coal. You know, thank you, Dick Cheney. You know, these trails come to a little point up here right in the middle of this gap. You see where they cross in the dark zone. By design. They aimed for that target. There's something there. Something there that has their attention. Just in this one little zone, I can count at least 11 discrete flights. I don't know how many, you know, constituted this other hairy, pseudo reverse fall streak kind of cloud where we got the hairies coming up from the bottom rather than going down. So there may be, you know, another 5 or 6 prior to that. Got a guy straight overhead, you know, just adding to the mixture. So I need to go look at satellite imagery and see just what they're targeting today. But they're doing something. And it's requiring spending millions of dollars. Millions of dollars that you and I will never pay for. It's just fiat dollars kicking out of the back of the Federal Reserve. Dollars, you know, off to the black budgets. And when the bankers can issue bonds in the hundreds of billions of dollars in the 30s, I think we're probably dealing with quadrillions today. So buying a $300 million airplane is nothing. Buying a $30 million little airplane to do this is nothing. You know, they're dealing with sums of money that are just unfathomable to us and Mitt Romney's 47%. Here's another little guy doing the work of his masters. And they try to move these little commercial or these little business jets in there and pawn them off as a non-chemtrail, but that's certainly not the case. This is quite the little formation. You see the trail, straight line right here, arcs up. He meets some disturbance, some shear. The tail breaks strongly off to the left, comes through this cloud, breaks strongly to the left here. It goes through another cloud, and then kind of resumes its regular behavior. This is what the trails are for, to illustrate and to demonstrate, or to just show them how the atmosphere is deforming in its many layers, artificial layers, layers induced by geoengineering. I'm continuing to see this ballet in the sky, watching this guy come up from the west, and he just essentially outlined this twist in this whole other trail that's going along this way. And then this smaller plane, this smaller trail, I shouldn't say plane, is probably going to hit right in through here, right through the center of it. He's just going to hit that precisely. This guy will come up. We've had one come over the top of us. He's another chemtrail, but back behind us, he left this tick right on the northern edge of what was another powders or a chemtrail cloud. But why does this segment persist? Why does this segment continue to glow when we've seen planes today that have dropped their trails through the clouds that didn't fluoresce, didn't continue to glow in the cloud, but on the outer extent? And this one now is persisting inside the cloud. Let's come back across. We can see where this little plane, this little guy, where is he? He's already down here, isn't he? He's already down, he's crossed right in here. But look at the spread right here. You can see the trail spreads. And so they're measuring that. We've got another something happening right here. And then the plane, oh, we've got a little brightening right here, right at a dip. You can see that dip right in there. And then the trail brightens on this side of it. And then the trail gaps. Let's push on in now that he's in the light. Maybe US Air, Delta, it's kind of hard to tell. Looking on the shadowed side of the wingtip and through the viewfinder. But there's probably something with the previous trail that's been laid down. No, he's off at an angle. He's at an angle. See what across the other trail right here had this one continued on. And off to the west. So they're all about marking off zones where the trails are isolating atmospheric behavior, where on one side of the trail the atmosphere is doing one thing and on the other side is doing another. And trails run across that will denote the boundary. All these powders. So he's gone right through the gut of this cloud. Those powders. Breathe deeply, people. Breathe deeply. There's a lot of crap up there. I showed you guys this morning the chemtrails that we got going on overhead and just how thick they've become as they've essentially obscured maybe 15-20% of our incoming solar radiation. I'm down in here, and you can see all of these marks across Utah, Idaho, extending up on into Oregon. And it's all because of this little impulse coming in here. We've got two of them kind of pinwheeling out of the end of the Pacific, but they're doing something to accelerate how this trough then kicks into Texas and ejecting, meaning moving out to the northeast, that low that's in place. Other chemtrail activity across southern Alberta. You can see the wider stripes in there. This is the water vapor imagery. And we all know that the chemtrails have this means of sequestering moisture, of attracting moisture, of creating clouds. And so when we look at the water vapor imagery, and this goes to 1830Z, which is 12:30 p.m. Mountain Time, where I am, we can see that first. We click over to the visible imagery, and we're going to rewind till about mid-morning. And you can see all the trails in the visible imagery across Utah, extending down into Colorado, and then some up into Oregon as well. And earlier I showed you the haze that we're dealing with, and that is all of the smoke that's draining out of the fires that are taking place across the Pacific Northwest. You can see all of this is fire, smoke trapped into the valleys of Idaho. My mouse is acting a little wonky today. You can see all of this smoke trapped into those lower valleys in this cool September mornings. Smoke from the Cascades, smoke from the mid-Cascades, smoke from the John Day area in Oregon. And that's all being drawn, and that's what we're dealing with and why our visibilities have gone from 100 miles down to maybe 8 at tops today. You can see some of the trails earlier today across Montana. So that's just kind of what's happening here in the Mountain West. And I know there's lots of weather going on everywhere else, but this is what's home for me. Just watch this guy run right through this formation. Silver or not, I don't know. He's very interested in going right through the middle of it. I mean, and precisely so. And this is what I see so often, is that these planes have exquisite targeting when it comes to these geometric shapes. happening within the cirrus canopy. And another one, I'll look behind us, just over the rooftop. This trail was here maybe 3-4 minutes ago. And we've got this one bright knot right there, right in the middle of this formation. It remains illuminated, it remains brighter. We go off to this one end and the trail essentially ends, and now we've got another plane coming up along its southeast flank. And so there's going to be some geometric relationship between this trail and then the angle that he's taking. Something within that angle is of interest to them. So there's one just over the top of the mountaintops that I probably not going to be able to get to because of the trees. But let's come in and see just what kind of plane this character is. I've got my contacts in, so the viewfinder's set for the eyeglasses. Nice 2-engine jet regardless. And it kind of looks like he's a red trail. Here he is. He's passing in front of the sun. I'll iris down just a touch. It sounds like he's actually in glide slope. He's descending. You hear that? Pushed in as far as I can go. And he's a business jet. 2-wing tail. So he's on descent. And that's what I've kind of discovered, that they're always in this constant climb or descent, climb or descent. They reach a peak, then they go down, then they go up, and then they go down. It's like they're creating channels or slopes for the slope of the air to take. Ascending air will create clouds, descending air will inhibit cloud formation. That's just simple. That is thermodynamics. So we've got a darkening spot right here where the trail's fading away. But there's something about this hole that he went precisely through. Back out, see the wider view. And our earlier puff there is now drifting off to the southeast as the clouds largely today are headed east-southeastern direction. We've got the time-lapse going on a frame every 5 seconds. That usually is a little more helpful when I'm looking at chemtrails. And that gives us 150 times normal speed. Alright, here comes another guy in from the northwest. And so there's something that this trail is doing here, probably right in this zone. Probably right in here. Can I see this rippling here? I bet that's what this new plane is interested in. Once you figure out what they're doing, that these planes leave a trail, the trail deforms, the trail, reveals something is happening in the atmosphere, and then another plane comes along to investigate it or to mark off precisely where that event is occurring. They've got to have some computers and some incredible artificial intelligence that's just watching it all happen. So it looks like we've got what was a pink or orange trail, and now we've got a blue buddy here. Whose colors is he flying? It's tough to get on this side of the light, but let's see what's happening to the trails. So this one, you saw how young it is, and the other plane came right along. And so he's essentially crossed it where this puppy's fading. And so he's marking that point where this opening, essentially this square, is happening. And I would not be surprised at all to see a plane come along right in through here. Take this kind of flight path through that opening there, through this, and through this opening. I would almost expect to see that happen within the next 5 minutes. And they just keep coming over. One after the other after the other. They're rolling across our skies. And we're just kind of clouding up. We're losing our sunshine. Interesting here where this trail ends. You can see how the powders come along and then are torn off to the southeast. That's curious. After kind of bending this way on this side. As we look across this cloud here, we've got a little brightening and then a rather, let's back out, rather pronounced gap in through here. And then you can see we have more twisting. We've got a cloud, we've got some kind of geometry that's happening right here that they were interested in. This was the target of this particular flight. And here the powders drift down. On this side they kind of are spread evenly. And then we have a profound up and roll over the top. So it's like there's a breeze or an object right here that they're investigating. And so this spot right here is where it denotes the edge of that. And so I've often seen other planes come along and hit this spot. And that's not to say that that isn't what this is. But it really looks more like just kind of a regular cirrus cloud. But what's regular today? When you have these kind of sharp edges in the clouds, there's some work that it's at play. And off to the north, more trails as we look north on the Sangres. Just notice this pink trail out of the kitchen window. Out to the west, short duration. Very different mixture than some of the other ones. But what had my attention was this trail, how it was standing in the west, and that there is a segment up into here that's now faded. But he went precisely, this trail over here, went precisely through this gap, atop of this one that's standing in the west. Notice how we have this little place where it's pushed off to the right, to the northwest, equal with this layer in the clouds. And then a more profound push with the powder spreading. That's given them some information. In fact, right here it looks like the trail is largely intact. And then it begins a sharp jump to the left, comes back together, and then it spreads to the right, and then back to the left here. So it's wiggling into the shape of something. Then we'll swing around. See this formation here, cube inside, another opening, and in either this notch or this notch I would expect to see a flight, and often sometimes right through this gap right here. I would see a flight like right through here is what they'd be interested in. And come on, when you see smoke or something flowing in a uniform field of water or a stream of water take that kind of shape, you just don't. You just don't. We just step outside to see what's going on, and there's this little puppy just scooting overhead. See if we can't push in a little closer. Again, I'm not going to get make, or at least airline. We know his belly isn't painted blue to blend with the sky. This is what the trail is doing, just a little rotation. And then it's a fairly quick fader. I'd be curious to see what's on the horizon here that this guy might be interested. And more so if he hasn't left anything behind us. We're beginning to see some clouds building up over the mountains to the west. And we're just kind of in this haze. There might be something in here that he's interested in. But certainly his trail isn't sticking at this point in time. He's still too low to be a regular flight. And regular flights are not leaving trails today. I'm going to go inside and take a look at satellite imagery now. There's a lot going on over Montana. There's a train of them out in the mid-Atlantic where we're seeing trails. And some out in the Pacific, but the Pacific doesn't seem to be as busy as it has been over days past. Checking with that in just a sec. All right, let's just start off with a quick look at what's going on back east. The old storm system is now pushed off the coast. Still has yet to clear Florida. Hole and hole. We'll anchor the storm around that. We've got holes in here. You know, all this stuff happening at a rather fine scale. We'll zoom on in. We can see the crazy geometry that has become the weather these days. And around these holes, you can see the clouds literally springing out from. Same kind of with this one. And so, you know, I've really learned to begin to look at these holes as important indicators of what's going to happen in the weather, because there's nearly always a pair of them. Let's pop out, look at the larger scale. What do we see over Lake Superior? Over the northern edge of the UP of Michigan and then into Ontario. We see another set of holes. And they are the anchoring points for this other cold surge. We've got more holes back in here. So there's this resonant geometry that the weather is forced to conform to. Come out to Montana, and we can see some of the high clouds racing across the Black Hills of South Dakota, and then just oodles and oodles of high clouds. We'll come over to the western view through Montana. And I'm not quite sure what time this is. Come back here, 21:45 so that's 3:45 Mountain Time. Still have the remnants of the tropical storms down to out in the Pacific, but what do we find here? Holes, once again. Separate from the eye, which is the center of circulation, we still find these inherent holes. In fact, this one probably matches this one. And then there's another set inside on a smaller scale inside this eye. Come out, we'll see the other weakening one well off the coast of Baja. This gets kind of stuck in the marine layers. It begins to rapidly wind down. So what I was interested in is all of the trails that are taking place across southern Canada, through parts of British Columbia, but most importantly right now through Alberta, Saskatchewan, and then rolling into the Dakotas, both Dakotas and through southern Montana. If we come over and look at the water vapor imagery, it simply looks just like a haze as the deck of clouds has essentially smeared out. We've got a weak low off the coast of California with this guy kind of working in. This was getting some heavy chemtrailing over the previous 2 days. We go out in the Pacific and we find some symmetry. Not completely unexpected in a fluid, but nevertheless, since we know they have their handprint over all of this country's, all of this continent, and all of this planet's weather, it's not a surprise for me. And then we can see some trails coming off of not quite Juneau, Alaska, but off of this chain of islands north of Vancouver Island. We can see some trails in here. I'm going to come off into the Atlantic, and I'm going to throw on some enhancement just a touch, bring it into Vapor 1. We'll see the coast. We've got Maine, New England. At the leading edge of this vapor, this is the drier air in here in the red, and then we're beginning to see the wetter, the more saturated atmosphere as we head towards the blues and then some of the other color enhancement. But the gray is clouds, the white is clouds, and then the gray is water vapor. But right in through here, you can see those trails, boom, 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 as they just kind of show up and then race off to the south. And if you're looking at this from space, you're beginning to measure how the south wind meets this northbound wind. You're looking at this very fine boundary right in, before I find my mouse, right in through here. This is crucial to determine the interaction between the air masses. And this might be trails as well back in here, well off the Bahamas. In fact, this might be Bermuda. No, this is probably Bermuda up in here. But nevertheless, it's at these fringes where these guys are so good at working and engineering their weather. And there's trailing going on up in this direction as we work into Europe. And I know the guys in UK, you just don't have access to the kind of weather information we do. And I wish you did. I wish you did. There's got to be some universities that would provide this kind of data to the public. And it's really kind of disappointing how much in a lockdown data and information has been for Europeans. It's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. I suppose being here in the States, I'm kind of grateful we still have access to what is and our projects and satellites that are all funded by public dollars. These are tax dollars at work. This information should be freely available to anyone who chooses to look for it, but that just isn't always the case. All right, I'll check in a bit. Well, I just missed this big fatty. You know, can't be outside the whole time, as much as it's nice. It didn't persist, but it did then go on and then end out here where we've seen a lot of them just kind of fade away. Having a fresh one come up here. Looks like he just went under this older one. So we'll watch this plane come on up and in. I'm struggling to stay steady. But, oh, and his trail didn't stick either. So we left just a tick as it went through this cloud here. It just, it's funny, if it was water, it would have stuck in the cloud and dissipated elsewhere. This is kind of the opposite, where it's stuck in the drier environment and didn't in the cloud. So it's like it's marking area. Well, it could be marking areas where the orgone energy is rich. And if the orgone is rich, then it's not dissipating. Or it could be an inverse humidity kind of marking trail. It's kind of hard to say. Nevertheless, this trail did end where this one crossed, and now we have a fresh one coming in here, so there's something happening here. And I may dart upstairs to go change the change where the time lapse is looking. Let's see if we can't get a quick look at who he is, who he's supposed to be. I'm pushed in. This is like 120 power. I don't know, it looks like an Airbus. Airbuses tend to be Airbus 319. They tend to be Frontiers. So we'll see. All right, I'll go upstairs and see what, well, let's see. This third plane that came through. See how he kissed the very end of where this other trail essentially blew up. Let me see if I'm... You see? That's what's interesting for me. So there's absolutely something happening at this point. And I just moved the time lapse over. So we'll see how this deforms and see what's going on at that spot in the sky. As we get close to sunset, this is what our sky has become. Still have the debris in the sky, and the result of a lot of trails that have been in place for probably the better part of 1,500 miles upstream, and so this stuff just keeps coming in and coming in. You know, and what is happening upstream is what eventually impacts here. And, you know, I was reading an email from a dude in Jersey, and, you know, they're overhead in his location, and he's wondering, well, why Jersey? It has nothing to do with New Jersey. It has to do with something happening with the storm as it departs out into the Atlantic. What happens overhead does not generally impact that location. It's for down the stream. It's working downstream. When you hear the planes without trails, those are I'm more concerned about it as having an immediate effect. So just watching these two where they crossed, and of course where they crossed is where the deformation or the one changed, and essentially they met in the cloud. And come up here, there's another one moving through, and then this one, the base of this one, and it just kind of ends where a previous one has now kind of been smooshed it out into place. Better get out of the road, eh? In any case, that's probably it for the day. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get back out here and have a look-see. I think we're spotting a little bit of a crescent moon here. It probably works through Scorpio tonight. In any case, everybody keep looking up and share these videos. It's the only way we're going to get this movement to a broader audience. is to share the story, share the information. Share, share, share. That is key. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so I couldn't resist watching the end of this trail. And you know, where trails end, there's a reason why they end. There's a reason why the persistent part of it doesn't persist, doesn't go on. And we just saw another plane come on through. Maybe I can get zoomed on in here before I lose him behind the trees. And then there's always the aspect of staying steady. No, he's going to be too far away. Nevertheless, he was an orange trail. And that's why I kind of had to scoot out here and nab him. He went right through this puppy, right through it, and then below this other trail that is now deformed. I'm looking this way in the time lapse, so we'll be able to see it, but it's also sped up a touch. I'm looking at about 300 times normal speed. As the sun sets in the west, I kind of decided to accelerate since, otherwise it's going to be 5 minutes of time lapse, and that's just a lot to sit through in silence. But there's the trails from earlier. All right, everybody. I'm certain, well, not certain. This is it. Keep looking up. Okay, so I'm up here tending the time-lapse camera and just seeing this incredible sunset. You see this trail here, the one that runs vertical, and how it's crossed by two trails. This one here and then the one below. But notice the one they cross, this more vertical one, has this width in the center. Notice how these two trails, 1 and 2, cross where the trail widens. Where the trail widening had to be marked, needed to be marked, had to be observed to see how it was deforming, to see how it was changing, to the energy that was applied to it. Whenever we see a trail crossing, one side of the trail, this side, is exhibiting a different behavior, deformation than the top side. You can see that with this one just off the horizon. This is why we see 99% of the chemtrails. There may be other agendas at play, but this is why the chemtrails are flowing where they are flowing. And once you see it through time-lapse photography, once you see it by watching it, it becomes stupidly, stupidly simple. And then there's no wondering, why are they doing it? It becomes very easy to see in the sky once you know what to look for. Notice how this trail, this northern part right here, and then there's this southern one here. Northern cloud, southern cloud. And then we've had the trails come through them. In fact, this one here is in the midst of a big sphere. You can see the outer edges in the dark clouds right there. The outer edges of the sphere. Right here. More trails. Get exhibiting the same behavior. The bottom part bends and turns and comes back this way. We have trails that come to cross it. There's always a change in behavior where the trails cross. The question is, will the trails remain in existence long enough so you can see that happen? And that is truly the end of the day, as I'm losing my son. Crazy, huh? And here's time lapse, which you guys will see in a little bit. Come on, camera, you can focus. I know you can focus. And so, kind of zoom in on that, and we'll see how this plays out. All right, everybody, 19 September, Wednesday. Keep looking up.